guys, Jippy with Bomb City Reptiles here, and today I just wanted to go over carnivore diet as far as lizards. Um, there's a lot more out there than what the big box stores tell you to get. I mean, crickets. Yeah, a dozen crickets here or there, that gets you going. Every single lizard species is different on the variety of diet they need. Crickets are a sustainable thing to offer. They offer it at a lot of the big chain stores, but there's some nutrition that they need that a lot of the times crickets alone cannot provide. When you're talking about like bearded dragons, you got to supplement with vegetables when they get older. But there's also some benefits to other insects while they're young. Dubia roaches, to me, are probably one of the better supplemental food sources that you can get for them. I like them better than crickets, especially storing them because they don't smell near as much. And the other thing I like about them is I can breed dubia roaches pretty easily. I don't have to worry about the smell that crickets produce, and I just kind of like the fact that they're a lot easier to catch. I don't have to worry about them jumping around, and of course the bearded dragons love them. Mealworms are another option that you can get for a lot of different reptiles. Mealworms as a whole, I do not feed any young bearded dragons, anything juvenile and below. They have a really high chitin factor, so they can get impacted really, really easily from eating mealworms. It's just one of those things that mealworms are easy to breed. You can get them, but just stay away from them for the younger species of reptiles. Leave them on dubia roaches, smaller crickets, before you even attempt at moving them up to mealworms. Leopard geckos, I do find, do really, really well on a staple diet of mealworms once they get above juvenile. They readily take them. They don't have to hunt as hard as they do with crickets, bouncing around their enclosure. I usually just take a small bowl, small lid to a mason jar, plastic, not metal, and I put that in their cage, put the mealworms in it, and they can go and fish out of a barrel, hunt their prey as they will. Superworms are another option, especially when you have some of the larger lizard species, young savanna monitors, adult bearded dragons. They all really, really relish the protein that is in superworms. A lot of the species, like bearded dragons, get a lot of their moisture content from what they eat more than what they get from a bowl of water. Not to say that they won't drink from it, but a superworm for an adult bearded dragon really helps to keep their weight where it needs to be. As far as savanna monitors go, it's a great thing to get them as far as being able to keep the amount of food in them that they need. Offering rodents, not as much, but gradually every now and then, kind of as a treat. That's kind of how I treat superworms for my leopard geckos. Is I'll throw one in there every now and then, just as kind of a treat for them to have. They usually go for that first before they go for the mealworms, but it's kind of just I guess candy for them that I can give them something that they look forward to. As far as other things that you can offer, there are a lot of different insects out there that offer benefits more than just just a treat. Black soldier fly larvae. These are excellent sources of calcium. If you're dusting, any of your insects to give, and you think that you need just that extra, boost, a black soldier fly larvae has, 10 times the amount of calcium that other insects do. And they're slow. Usually depending on who I'm feeding it to, I usually tongue feed just because they don't move as much as, say, a mealworm, superworm, and they need a little coaxing, but most of the time they'll take them. I usually feed those once baby bearded dragons have gotten to a certain size, just so they can get that extra calcium in their diet. As far as hydration, hornworms are probably one of the best sources of hydration. So if you've got an animal, say, you might have rescued, or looks a little dehydrated, but you don't, and you've offered water, but you don't think it's doing the trick, hornworm, large, juicy hornworm, does the trick. It will definitely boost the hydration in their system. Um, Wax worms are another one that you can offer. They are extremely fatty, so should never be a staple in their diet. It should just be something offered every now and then. I usually like to give wax worms to any female that has recently laid eggs, just to kind of get some of that body fat up, as well as black soldier fly larvae to kind of boost the calcium after having those eggs, just to kind of avoid any kind of metabolic bone disease that might occur. As far as butterworms, for example, butterworms are one of those ones that if you ever try to find them online, it's almost like there's a season for them. And the reason for that is because they're not bred, or at least there's not a lot of places I know of that breed them in the United States. Most of them are actually imported, and they get irradiated before they get into the country. And because of this, it's just one of those things that they're hard to find. They are kind of like a wax worm, a little bit fatty, but I tend to go for what's more readily available that I can get, shipped straight to my door or my post office, depending on, how hot or cold it is outside, just so I can get, exactly what I need. I'm not knocking crickets. A lot of people have fed their animals on crickets for a long time, and if you can readily breed them in an area where it's not going to stink up your whole house or your reptile room, go ahead and do it. I mean, you can get lots of different sizes to feed a variety of different animals. As far as your size for dubia roaches, this is my container that I breed my dubia roaches in. I have enough males and females. I started off with a colony of 10 females and 3 males, and they've been breeding just fine. I harvest what I need whenever I need it, feed it to my bearded dragons, and the rest just go. As far as food, I just offer them a little bit of dry dog food, just as something a little bit crushed up. I also offer, kind of going bad vegetables, carrots, lettuce, really anything that I can put in there that they're going to go for as far as a water source. I just keep that, regularly filled up just so they can get what they need out of it. And they've been doing just fine. And they don't stink. I usually put a layer of vermiculite and perlite in the bottom of it, just to kind of, soak up what's needed. Also, buffalo beetles are a good thing to have because as, the adults die off or anything dies off, they keep, they're that cleanup crew to go in and clean up that stuff, out of the ecosystem, just so that it's not, a bad thing for the rest of the dubia roaches that are growing up. Mealworms are pretty easy. There's lots of different ways that you can raise them, tons that I've found on the internet. The 3-drawer system seems to work pretty well. Just leaving your beetles in the top with a screen mesh underneath the drawer. That way they deposit their eggs, they go down into the next bin that has wheat bran in it, and you switch those out over time and just keep raising up the different sizes that you need. Superworms are a little harder than mealworms to breed. Mealworms breed pretty regularly. They'll go into a pupa stage and you'll get beetles pretty easy. Superworms, they won't go into the pupa stage until they are alone. A lot of people have to section them off either in little deli cups or like tackle boxes where there's just one worm per little container in there. They'll coil up and then start to revert into the pupa phase. From there, then they go into the beetle phase, and you can add them to a colony so that they'll breed. Waxworms, you can breed waxworms. They have a moth, or they basically come into a moth phase. That's their final phase. They like to breed at kind of a higher, warmer, wetter temperature. They have to have kind of a sweet substance available for them to do this. They kind of make a cocoon, like almost like a silk moth, and go from there. They're a little harder to get going, but honestly, they're pretty cheap. I mean, I can get 250 of them for a pretty decent price sent straight to my door, and you keep them in the fridge, they'll stay hibernated so they don't turn into that cocoon, and that way you can keep them longer. I keep all of my other insects just at room temperature, just so they can get fresh air. I do offer foodstuffs to all of them just to kind of keep them up, plus give them, I want a healthy bug in order to feed to my lizard. I don't want some half-dead, animal that is basically about to die because that's not enough nutrition for your lizard. Some lizards require different aspects of nutrition. A lot of your larger monitors are going to need a lot different foodstuffs. Sometimes it's raw chicken, sometimes it's hamburger meat, depending on what you're feeding. Rodents are one of those things that I've heard aren't that great to give on a regular basis, but I've never messed with it really because I really don't have any large monitors. There's probably someone else out there that has a monitor video that can explain a lot better what nutrition is available for them. Depending on other species, like say fruit flies, for your dart frogs and your smaller gecko species when they're first born, fruit fly cultures are easy to make, easy to maintain. Usually you can make several of them from one batch. There's also the green bottle flies that are really good for like hatchling chameleons. They already come in little bitty cocoons. You just lay them out somewhere inside their cage. They hatch out, start flying around, and usually the baby chameleons can get them pretty good. As far as nutrition for like crested geckos, most of the time when they're babies or breeder females, they need that little bit of extra protein. If you're feeding anything like Pangea, Repashy, and you want that a little bit extra for them to maybe grow a little bit better or to recover better after a breeding season, kind of find whatever their favorite flavor of the gelled food is, and make sure that you add the with insects into it. It's just an easier way for them to get that stuff that they need. And crested geckos are usually one of those. I don't really see them hunting during the day. It's mostly at night. I don't like to leave any kind of insect in there unless it's something contained in a small feeding dish, such as mealworm or maybe some dubia roaches. Crickets tend to get a little chewy, especially after the light goes out. I've had several people that have had problems where they'll keep crickets in their container overnight with their bearded dragons or whatever lizard, and they'll chew on them and cause some infections. So just keep track. Don't try not to leave anybody or leave your animals with insects unattended. Just keep everybody safe, keep everybody healthy. If you guys got any questions about any other insects that might be available out there, or if you have questions on how I breed my dubia roaches or my mealworms, just give me a shout in the comments below. Anything else, just give me a shout and I'll try to answer it from there. Anyway guys, I hope you liked the video. If you do, give us a subscribe or a like.